Welcome back. Today we are going to continue with our rabbit hole of testing out some pliers wrenches, and pretty popular request was the IRWIN VISE-GRIP version. So let's dig into these and see what they got. So if we're taking a look at this, they are made in China, if we're keeping track. Now this says that it will operate from 5/16 to 1.5 inches. So let's see what we get for dimensions. So we're going to start out with our jaw width, and that is going to be right at 11/32. The adjustment is, I see you can't pull it down, but you can close it without operating the tool. So I didn't push the button. I can push this all the way closed. So I guess that's kind of angled at being a self-adjusting type thing. You can see they kind of have their own design going here, and that is like a little bit of a sawtooth type thing going on there. The button to push to actuate it is pretty easy to push, so I'm afraid it might be easy to accidentally bump, but that's a thing that I look at that is normally annoying to me when I use tools with the push button, but your usage may change. The top jaw is going to be 5/16. That's interesting. And the bottom jaw looks to be a little bit bigger. Yeah. I think we could support that by the field test. So the top jaw is 5/16, the lower jaw is 11/32. Looking at our jaw length, that is going to be an easy measure on this. That is right at 1.5 inches. Now let's take a look at what I'm referring to as the key size. We're gonna go with, check the other side. Let's go with 9/6. That's 9/32. I almost said 9/16. That is 9/32. Okay, so what is our jaw with it fully extended with the handles closed? We have the advertised 1.5 inches, but we're actually a 32nd over, so that's 17/32. Now with the handles open, what is the largest thing you could expect to get onto here? And that is going to be 1 27/32. Now next up, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and see how hard these are. That is something that we've been testing on everything, and I'm going to be optimistic and start at an HRC 50. We are indeed skating. Let's go to a 55, and we're digging in. So we're between a 50 and a 55. Next question is going to be, what do you expect to carry around in your daily carry if you get one of these? And that is 17.7 ounces. And for, depending on what you are looking to purchase, if you can get these, you're probably looking at about a $35 range. So we'll just put $35 at time of filming. Okay, next we're going to go over to the Vice and crank these up to 100 foot-pounds on our 5/8 hex drive and see what for marks get put on these jaws. Okay, we're over at the vise with our torque wrench, and we have our tool adjusted to be the size it needs to be, and we're going to see if we can get up to 100 foot-pounds with this tool and see what we get for marks on the jaw. I was not able to hold that to 100 foot-pounds. It started opening, so I'm going to grip it a little bit further back. Let's see what we get. Same thing, we're only getting about 72 foot-pounds out of this before the handles start to open up. Okay, so that was the first time I was not able to get 100 foot-pounds out of one of these tools. What was happening was the handles were pushing open and we were getting limited to 72 foot-pounds. So that's very interesting to me that the handles were, it was pushing apart and it wasn't able to hold things, which I think was what I was expecting from these all along. And when we tested the other pliers and they didn't do that, I was really impressed. So had I tested a pair of these first, I might have got something close to what I was expecting. So let's get into this and fire up the microscope and take a look here at what happened to these jaws as a result of our 72 foot-pound twist. Let's get that in focus. So you can see there we had 2 attempts. I normally like to try and do the first attempt out from the inside, and I can definitely feel that groove. And then here's our second attempt where we got all the way back in there. So we're definitely marking up the jaws with that. This is our fixed jaw, and then our movable jaw. Has a little less carnage on it, but you can see we still have marking, but I cannot feel that. I just feel where the scale's been broken off. So the movable jaw, a little bit less marking on it than the fixed, but we definitely can see in the side of the tool face right here the marking. So a little bit of carnage from our 70 foot-pound test here. Not a huge deal. Okay, so now that we've done that test, now the test that we all have been waiting for, and let's see what kind of leverage we can get out of this thing with our load cell setup here. So we're going to fire up the load cell scale, let it heat up here a little bit, and we got to get that into the right modes. Zero it out. Now what we can do, because this has that jaw that you can just slide, we're going to get this, so you can see how that's really far open. We're going to go one more, and then that is going to be our first test, and we'll see what numbers we can get. Okay, so we're over at the load cell vise. We've got our pliers. We are set up the same as all the other tests. We are monitoring just this load cell on this side of the vise. So now what we're going to do is we have our load cell set up. We're going to do our first test, which, if you recall, is going to be at the end of travel of the jaw, and we're going to see how much force we can apply with something at the end of the jaw, and then we're going to do the same thing at the inner part of the jaw. So we're going to go to 5-ish. Okay. So we've got 5. And we have 40. And we're going to measure our vice jaw, which is right at 3. Now we're going to go right up to 75. Ooh, this is flexing. Okay, so we're over a little. I think I'm going to leave it there. We're at 390, and we have, wow, that almost went an inch. We are 2 1/16. So we have 15/16 travel on that. Alright, so we will get that. Now, what we'll do is we will slide this all the way back to here into our back setting or position, and now we're going to set it up. We're going to go to 5, okay, so that's probably about our same, we'll call that 45, 45, and we have 3 3/32. 3 3/32. So that shows that it's sitting a little differently in these jaws. So that's interesting. So let's go ahead and crank this thing up to 75. We're definitely getting more out of it. Now we're over by a little. Okay, so we're pretty close to 75 there. We'll call that 75, 550, and we are 2 3/8 exactly. Okay, let me get all this entered in, and we'll be back over and talk about what we found. Okay, so some interesting results. Now, this pliers had a little bit better performance at the compression at the tip than some of the other pairs. And I think that's interesting. It's like right a little bit better than the icons, so a little bit better than these, but both of these we could get to the 100 foot-pounds. So it's a little bit better specs wise for squeezing with leverage than these. And I'm wondering if it's partially how this is designed, because this is a little easier to move than this. See how this is on a different angle? This might lose a lot of its mechanical advantage by the way they have it designed. So that's interesting that this is seen a little bit more mechanical, or I should say less mechanical advantage on where it's at here than this style of pliers. It came in lower than the Klein as well, which is still this style pliers. This also had a decent amount of flex, it just a little bit less than the Klein. This had the most flex, and that was something that is interesting to see, that some of these really do have a fair amount of flex in them. So that's something to take into consideration as well. But overall, it's very interesting. This is a unique spin on it, and it's something that can get you into areas. Now, if your goal is to use this It looks like they're going more for the plumbing market, for like a sink trap that's making you fight a little bit. I don't know that this is necessarily bad. You don't need a ton of force, and the angle that they have this designed at might actually be a little bit more beneficial than what the conventional ones are. So that's something that, if it does what you need it to do, is there anything really wrong with it? I can say that the self-adjusting into where you want it might be a handy thing, or it might be an annoying thing. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that yet, but the easy to push button is a little bit of a downside for me. I like it when the tools don't have an easy to push adjustment. Like these icons, easy to push adjustment. Actually, the original icon actually is a little bit harder to get into the adjustment than the new version. The new version is a very easy to push adjustment, and I don't actually like that because it creates this nuisance adjusting. Whereas your Knipex, you gotta get the button down in there pretty good. So hopefully you don't get the nuisance adjust with the tool all that much. So I would say that's something that may or may not bother you. If it does, that's something you probably want to pay attention to, that some of these tools are going to be easy to accidentally adjust. So I hope that was interesting. We took a look at another pair of pliers here on the scale of things to look at, and I think that's really interesting to see how we're starting to see things take shape as we get more data points into what we're getting into. Let me know in the comments below, do you have the VISE-GRIP? Did you like it? Did you experience the handles wanting to open up like I did? That was actually not expected by me. None of these really wanted to open up on the workpiece. This was the first one that we've tested so far that wanted to open up as we were trying to get to our 100 foot-pounds. In fact, we only got to 74 or something like that. So we never made it to the full 100 foot-pounds. That's okay, but all things take into consideration. So as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.